Hey, good morning. So today we're talking about telling your story and more specifically, what that actually means. A lot of times people come to me and say, hey, I need to do this, or I need to help tell my story. I need to create some copy. I need a sales page. And those are all elements of telling your story. Sometimes they're also looking for LinkedIn content. That is also a way to tell your story. So what does it look like though? How do you figure out the story and how do you figure out what matters? There are a lot of different approaches here because if you tell a story from your own perspective, then you're missing some key details. And if you think about it, like every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in some ways, your beginning, middle, and end are going to be very different from where you come in other people's lives. You're a character, whether you're talking about you as a person, you as a business, somewhere in between, you're a character in someone else's story, which is really this mind-boggling thing to think of because in your own story, you're front and center. So what does it look like to tell your story in a way that actually resonates with your audience? How do you tell your story in a way that turns your clients into superfans from day one? Really, I talk about this as having two phases. You see what your clients want, what resonates with them, what matters to them on the one hand, and then you figure out who you want to be. Again, whether it's you as a person, if you're developing a personal brand, or you as a company, if you're focusing on the company's brand. And it doesn't matter if your company is 1 to 100 people. Excuse me, or more, right? So how big is your company doesn't matter. It will matter in the way that you approach your brand messaging and your storytelling. But for the purposes of this exercise, it really boils down to what your audience wants and how you want to come across. So I always talk about this as like a Venn diagram. So on the one side, again, is what your audience wants. On the other side is what you want. And that middle, that's the sweet spot. That's what actually resonates with your audience and the story that you want to tell. That's that common ground. So how do you find that? What is the anatomy of these stories? The first step is to do audience research. Now, you've probably already done a bunch of this, depending on where you are in the business or where you are as a storyteller. You've probably already started to figure out like what matters to them. But I want you to take a deep dive and make sure that the people that you think are your customers really are your customers and that the story that they want to hear is the same story that you're telling, because it should always feel authentic. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't, but you want to test your story with the audience. One way that you can start doing that before you even start telling it or before you start revamping your brand strategy or your brand story or your content strategy, any of those things, is to move all of your preconceived notions about your business to the side. Move this over to right field and instead focus on your customers. What are they saying about you in conversations? Jot down some notes. If you record any conversations, go back, see what they're saying about their problems, see what they're saying about the solutions, see what they're saying about what they've tried and what hasn't worked. Look at reviews. If you don't have a ton of reviews, start with your own, of course. But if you don't have a ton, look at the people who are your closest competitors. How do they talk? How do their customers talk about their problems? What does this look like? What do some of those conversations look like? What emails are they sending in to tell you? What does some of this data look like? And this is not the numbers necessarily, but it's the voice of customer data. So this is where you come up with some of the key messaging and key themes. So another way to do it is if they're introducing you or your company to people, pay attention to how they're introducing you. Pay attention to what they're saying about you and what your company is and the things that you do. And then look for some of these sticky messages that are like either they're things you're hearing over and over again. They are interesting phrasing that's worth reviewing. And again, we're not taking into consideration anything that's currently out there. That's still off to the side. So right now, by doing this, you're filling out your Venn diagram, the customer side of the Venn diagram. On your side of the Venn diagram is all about your business. What do you wish people knew about your business? What are the services that you offer? What do you believe that allows people to do? What do you believe the problems are that are coming in? What do you want to be known for? Sure, maybe you do one thing for a group of people, but maybe they see it through a different light. Remember, you're the character in their story. So we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second here. But if you're the character of their story, what you do for them may seem quite different. You may be a main character. You may be like this person who comes in on the left side of the screen, shakes their hand, if we're thinking movies, and walks out. You might be the extra that's serving them a meal. Yes, you're changing their life for that moment, but you may not be a part of their main story. And that's okay. That's perfectly okay. So with that said, what does that look like? What do you want to be known for? What do you want them to come to you for? And we'll get deeper into like the nuances here of what you do for them in the next part. So next up, we've looked at what you wish people knew, what you want to be known for. What are your non-negotiables? What are you never willing to sacrifice, either in a client relationship, in your business, in your personal relationships? What do those look like? There should be at least 3, no more than 5. Some people have 10, but it gets really hard to focus on those as core values if you have more than about 3. How do you want to make people feel? How do you want them to think of you? Do you want to think of them as this capable company? Do you want to think of them as a partner? Do you want them to think of you as a partner? Do you want to make them feel good? Do you want them to feel light, happy, serious? All of these things are super important. And then from there, start aligning the 2 sides with one another. What is the common ground between the 2? Are your customers, now that you've looked at the people who've reviewed it, are they the people that you think your customers are? Are they something different? Are you noticing some things about their titles, about their businesses? What are the commonalities? And how does that associate with what you're doing? From there, you can continue to align the 2 different sides of the Venn diagram to come up with this middle. And then you can come up with what are these key themes that we're noticing across the board. From there, you can start telling your brand story. Or even before you start telling your brand story, take a look at all of your existing materials. How do they match up to the center of the Venn diagram? They don't all have to be dead center, but you should aim for, if you think of it as like a bell curve, the vast majority of that middle should align with the middle. You may have some stuff over here that's more customer centric. You may have some stuff over here that's more you centric, but what does that look like in the middle? And then you take that existing content and you see how well it marries up. Maybe a lot of it is, maybe a lot of it's spot on, but then you can say, my brand story isn't quite there. My content strategy isn't right there. My website copy doesn't reflect this business. It doesn't reflect this audience. My funnel's not doing a good job of communicating all of this. So you audit your content against the bell curve and the Venn diagram, and you see where things land. From there, you can really start to hone in on the brand story, the story that you're telling. And we talked a little bit about the story and the characters. So before I sign off, if this sounds familiar, if you're part of the Story Brand, cult is not the word I want to use, but if you're part of this group and you ascribe to these theories, the idea behind Story Brand is that it is the foundation for every story that's being told. There's a main character, there's a problem they face, and there is someone who helps them pass that problem on whatever this road is. So if you're thinking about it in terms of visual terms, the main character is going down this path, whatever that is. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some of my favorite movies, but they're all Bluey right now. So there's some kind of thing that they're doing. They hit a wall. They can't get over it. They can't get around it. They can't go through it. They can't get under it. It is this obstacle in their journey. Someone steps in. And so in the case of some things, it maybe there's a villain here. But I think of it as a roadblock. Someone then comes in as the wise guide to help them, whether you're build a something to jump over it, to find a way to tunnel through it or dig under it, whatever that looks like. Someone comes in and helps them. After they help this character, that character goes off and finishes out the rest of their journey, whatever that looks like. And that is your business. Your business is theoretically the wise guide who helps them over the wall. Or if it's not your business, if this is your personal brand, or if, whatever this looks like. When do you come into other people's story? If you are a food blogger, the problem is that they're trying to figure out what to do for dinner, or they want to know how to make something special. So how do you communicate that to get them over the wall and off into the sunset where they're literally cooking and serving this food? So the problem that you solve, the actual problem may be the wall, but your customer doesn't see it like that. You may be like, I give you a recipe, you make it, ha ha ha, you're happy. On the other hand, though, if I'm talking about it, it's like, man, I don't know what to make for dinner. I don't know how to make this dairy-free. I don't know how to make this gluten-free. I just want my kids to eat whatever I cook. Can we feed them? Can it be fast? All of these things, right? So when you're talking about that, that's where you really need to listen to your customers and see how they're talking about their problems, because then the solution that you're promising isn't necessarily the recipe. It's dinner on the table every night in 30 minutes or less, if you follow, something or other. And then that is the foundation of your story and your copy. So we can talk about all this later. If you have questions on this, DM me, reach out if you want to learn how to tell your story better so that you can then extrapolate these concepts into your brand story, your content strategy, your website copy, your funnel, whatever that looks like. Let's talk. Hop into my DMs, drop into a comment here, or if you want to look at more information on how to do this, you can head over to erinpennings.com/blog. I write about brand message and storytelling a lot, and you can start to get some hints for my approach. And you can always reach out to me on my website. Again, erinpennings.com/blog. You can read everything, or you can dive into the other parts of the website from there. Thank you so much. And I am excited to continue helping you on your journey telling your story.